It started with risotto. That's not a metaphor. I mean actual risotto, mushroom, white wine, stirred to creamy perfection with the kind of focus usually reserved for surgery or defusing bombs. I'd spent 40 minutes at the stove and exactly 8 seconds trying to decide whether tonight warranted the good plates. Anniversary number 10. Double digits. Felt like a milestone. I lit 2 candles. Opened the bottle of red she'd circled in that wine club brochure. Even folded the napkins like we were in one of those fancy restaurants where they call you sir, but still charge you $6 for bread. She walked in 45 minutes late. Heels in one hand. Phone in the other. Lipstick fresh enough to make the wine blush. She didn't offer an apology, just glanced at the table like I'd set it for someone else. "Oh," she said. "That was it." "Oh." I smiled anyway. The kind of smile you wear when the iceberg's already scraped your hull but you haven't told the passengers. "Happy anniversary." She didn't kiss me. Just sat down and stared at the risotto like it had committed a minor social offense. Then, between bites, she dropped the kind of sentence that doesn't land, it detonates. "I think Cody's just better than you." She said it while cutting her chicken. Calm. Casual. Like she was commenting on the weather or the firmness of the meat. Cody. Her coworker. The one who couldn't grow a beard but apparently could grow into my seat at the table. I didn't respond right away. Not because I was stunned, but because I was calculating. My tongue was still coated in mushroom and betrayal. So I asked, very politely, "Better at what?" She shrugged. "Just, in general. He's sharper. Funnier. He gets things done." I remember looking at her across the flickering candlelight and realizing, with a clarity I wish I didn't have, that she wasn't even trying to be cruel. She was just done pretending. No rage. No tears. Just a quiet unraveling of the version of my life I thought I was living. I chewed my last bite, swallowed, and reached for my wine. "You know," I said, "I spent an hour making this risotto." She gave a small, vacant nod. "It's fine. Fine." The anniversary card sat unopened on her plate the entire evening. I didn't mention it. That night, I slept in the guest room, listening to the sound of her shower at 1:14 a.m., a new habit, apparently. I stared at the ceiling, wondering when exactly I became the kind of man who'd be traded in for someone with a LinkedIn bio that includes passionate about synergy. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because some betrayals deserve more than a broken plate or a shouting match. Some deserve precision. And I had just decided to become very, very precise. The next morning, she asked if we were out of oat milk. That's how it went down. Not about last night. Not, "Sorry I dismantled your dignity over chicken." Just oat milk. Like the previous evening had been a particularly awkward rerun. I told her I'd pick some up on the way back from work, and she kissed my cheek with the mechanical affection you'd give a pet you were trying to rehome. She still had no idea. Because the thing about being quietly devastated is you get to observe. You get to collect. And I'd been taking notes for a while now. See, Cody wasn't new. He'd been orbiting her life for over a year, in the periphery at first. Team meetings, client dinners, the occasional "he's harmless." I used to believe her, not because I trusted her more than myself, but because trusting her made my life easier to live. Not anymore. At work that day, I wasn't myself. I was a man underneath his own skin. While everyone else griped about budget meetings and stale coffee, I logged into our shared phone plan account. Not something I normally do. But necessity is the mother of morally gray decisions. There they were. A flurry of late-night texts. Numbers that repeated like clockwork. One in particular. 9:32 p.m., 11:05 p.m., 12:17 a.m. The last one timestamped while she was going to bed early with a migraine. Cody's number. Cody's pattern. Cody's bedtime chat. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen counter with a notebook open like I was planning a business expansion. In a way, I was. I was expanding the limits of how much of myself I could give without getting anything back. By Friday, I had her calendar passwords, her call logs, even access to her Uber receipts. She wasn't even being clever. Just confident. Bold, in the way only the unchallenged can be. Saturday morning came. She said she was going downtown for a conference. Of course she was. I waited 10 minutes after she left. Just enough for her to feel untouchable. Then I followed. Not like in the movies, no trench coat, no binoculars. Just a car, a quiet right turn, and the kind of patience you develop from 10 years of polite conversation and slowly dying dreams. She pulled into a hotel. Not a conference center. Not a meeting space. A hotel. That's when it stopped being theory. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I just parked, rolled down the window, and stared at the entrance like it might offer me an excuse I could live with. Instead, 30 minutes later, I saw him, Cody, walking out, alone, shirt untucked, looking like he'd just won something he didn't even know he was competing for. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't scream. I just smiled. A slow, hard smile. Because I finally understood something that changed everything. She thought I was weak because I was quiet. She had no idea how dangerous quiet could be. I didn't say a word when she got home. She walked through the door around 6:40 p.m., hair damp from a shower she didn't take here, eyes dancing with a lightness that hadn't visited our house in months. She even brought takeout. Thai. Like she could distract me with pad CEW and an extra spring roll. Long day, she said, setting the bag on the counter. Looks like it, I replied, watching the condensation trail down the plastic container like it was confessing. She didn't ask how my day was. She never did anymore. That night, I let her talk. I let her tell me about the conference, about how the keynote speaker was a bit underwhelming, and how she ran into an old classmate randomly. She made it all sound so boring, it was almost convincing. But I already knew about the Uber she took from the hotel to a bar 6 blocks away. I already knew the receipt timestamp didn't match her made-up schedule. I knew because I had eyes where she thought I only had trust. After she fell asleep, curled up on her side of the bed like an actress playing a peaceful wife, I moved quietly through the house. Grabbed the old hard drive I hadn't touched since grad school. Cleaned it. Set up folders. One labeled Receipts. One labeled Exit Plan. Another, Leverage. I wasn't sure what I'd put in that one just yet, but I'd figure it out. Here's the thing about betrayal, it changes your posture, your pace, your internal wiring. I no longer checked the weather. I checked her tone. I no longer noticed traffic. I noticed receipts, patterns, gaps in stories. I became the best version of a ghost, one that could walk beside her without making a sound. The next week, I opened a bank account in a different state. Digital, untraceable, just in case. Then I visited an attorney. Not a divorce attorney, not yet. Someone better. A friend of a friend, the kind of guy whose office was above a locksmith shop and whose handshake said, I fix things quietly. He told me things I already suspected. That shared assets could get messy. That premeditated exits were smart. That if she was unfaithful, it could be used, but only if I had proof. I smiled. I'm working on that. Just don't do anything impulsive, he warned. I haven't done anything impulsive in years, I said. He believed me. Because I meant it. That weekend, she left again. Another networking event. Another back late. Don't wait up. I didn't follow this time. I planted a small tracker in her car's glove box 2 nights before. When she parked at a boutique hotel 2 towns over, I got the ping. I got the confirmation. I got the moment I stopped feeling betrayed and started feeling strategic. I emailed myself everything. Screenshots, maps, timestamps, a photo of her holding Cody's hand outside the hotel, smiling like she just beat the house at blackjack. She had no idea I was done playing by the rules. Because the funny thing about rules? They only work when both players follow them. And I was about to become something she didn't recognize. A man with nothing left to protect except his plan. The plan didn't come to me all at once. It wasn't some Hollywood aha moment in the shower with a dramatic soundtrack swelling behind me. It came together the same way betrayal does, slowly, piece by piece, detail by detail. A buildup of tiny things until the weight of it became something you could weaponize. I started by writing her a letter. Not the kind people post on social media with hashtags like #closure or #knowyourworth. No, this one wasn't meant to heal. It was meant to haunt. I didn't plan to send it, at least, not yet. It was a draft, a psychological blueprint, something I could shape and sharpen until every word was precise and unflinching. You lied to me with a straight face for 6 months. You looked me in the eye, kissed me goodnight, and made breakfast the next morning like it was all fine. I used to wonder if you felt guilty. Now I realize you didn't even feel conflicted. I stopped writing, took a sip of coffee, and reread it. Good. A little self-righteous, but I earned that tone. I wasn't trying to win her back. I was trying to make her squirm. This letter was never about closure. It was a message in a bottle made entirely of broken glass. But I wasn't going to send it just yet. First, I needed to build the pressure. The next morning, I made her pancakes. Blueberry, her favorite. She blinked in surprise like a kid waking up to snow outside. Wow, what's the occasion? Just felt like it. She smiled. She actually smiled. It was insulting, really, how easily she accepted kindness from the man she was actively betraying. How quickly guilt can be swallowed with syrup and small talk. I spent the rest of the week being everything she thought she wanted: attentive, funny, helpful. I folded the laundry before she asked, took her car for an oil change, sent her a Spotify playlist titled Songs That Remind Me of Us. She played it in the kitchen 2 nights later while humming along to track 3, our old road trip favorite. I watched her from across the room, and I didn't feel love. I didn't feel anger. I felt confirmation. This was the woman who taught me the most important lesson of my life. Even the person who shares your bed can be plotting your undoing with a smile on their face and a forkful of risotto. So I smiled back. I kept collecting. Her texts, her hotel check-ins, a receipt from a gift shop labeled for him. She had used our joint account. Brazen or careless? Hard to say. Either way, I archived it all, labeled and categorized in folders on a drive she didn't know existed. That drive had backups. The backups had backups. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about presentation. I wanted her to see it. Not just hear accusations. Not just feel shame. I wanted her to witness the sheer volume of evidence, the detail, the thought. I wanted her to sit across from me one day soon, blinking rapidly, her mouth dry, as I laid it out with the calm of a man who'd long since passed through grief and come out the other side clean and surgical. But first, I needed the right moment. So I started planning that, too. I booked us a weekend cabin. You know the type: cozy, picturesque, perfect for rekindling things. I used her words when I suggested it. Maybe we need to reset. Just the two of us. Reconnect. She agreed too quickly. Guiltily, maybe. Or maybe she just assumed I was stupid enough to fall back into her story now that I was acting romantic again. She had no idea I was about to detonate her entire narrative. The cabin was booked for 3 weeks out. I spent the time leading up to it preparing my delivery. I edited the letter, added photos, highlighted timestamps, created a document timeline so even the most casual reader could follow along. I included receipts, calendar overlaps, a spreadsheet cross-referencing her girls' nights with Cody's location data. Oh, and I added a playlist. Not our playlist. A new one. Every song title told a story. The kind of songs that make you question if you've ever really been loved or if you were just convenient. I printed the whole thing, bound it in a folder, and titled it simply, Truth. 3 weeks passed quickly. She packed excitedly, talked about stargazing and maybe even getting back to what mattered. I nodded along, drove the whole way with one hand on the wheel and the other gripping the edge of the folder tucked beneath the driver's seat. The cabin was perfect. Rustic, but not rough. 2 bedrooms, though she didn't notice I only unpacked in one. The first night, we cooked dinner together. She opened a bottle of wine. I let her believe everything was okay, that she had won me back with her performance. Then I asked her to sit with me by the fire. "What's going on?" she asked, sensing a shift. "Nothing dramatic," I said. "I just wanted to share something I've been working on." I handed her the folder. She opened it. The first page was just a date, then a text message, then a receipt. Her eyes moved faster. Her breath changed. "What is this?" I didn't answer. I just watched. She turned the pages like they were burning her fingers. The further she went, the more color drained from her face. By page 15, she was fully silent. By page 20, her hand started shaking. When she looked up, I was already standing. "This is every detail," I said. "Every lie. Every hotel. Every message. I know. I've known for a while." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. And that silence? That was the sound of the game flipping. "I'm not yelling," I said, "because I'm not here to fight. I'm here to let you know I'm done playing husband. I'm done being the guy you lie to with a straight face." She tried to speak. I didn't let her. "You'll find your key doesn't work when we get home. Your access to our bank account ends next Monday. And by the time your friends hear about this, I won't have to say a word. The facts will speak for themselves." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing before her. Which was fair, because I wasn't him anymore. I was the draft she thought would never get written. And now it was published. She didn't cry. Not right away. She just sat there, one hand on the folder, the other limp in her lap, like someone waiting for a verdict she already knew was coming. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I half expected a plea, a tantrum, some indignant defense. What I got was worse. "So, what now?" like she had walked into a courtroom and thought the prosecution might still offer a hug. "Now," I said, leaning back against the stone fireplace. "Now, you face the consequences. And no, I don't mean a dramatic divorce hearing with dramatic speeches and mutual regrets." She shifted in her chair. "What I mean," I continued, "is that I've already left you. This," I gestured to the folder, "was just your notification." She blinked, like she hadn't registered that I was already gone, that I had emotionally unplugged months ago and was now standing in the ashes with my hands clean and my conscience clear. "You planned all this?" Her voice cracked, just a little, and I could finally hear the tremor behind her confidence, the sound of a structure discovering it at termites. "You made it easy," I replied. "I just followed the blueprint you left behind." For a few minutes, we just sat there in silence. The fire popped. The wind outside rattled the window panes like even the trees had an opinion. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, "This doesn't have to be ugly," she said. "Oh, the audacity." "No," I said. "You took care of the ugly. You just didn't think it would echo back." She flipped another page in the folder. I watched her eyes skim the time-stamped photo of her walking out of a hotel in the same jacket she wore the day she said she was working late. Then the message. "Can't wait to see you again. I love the way you laugh when you're not with him." Her face turned pale. Her lips twitched into something like regret, but not quite. It wasn't sorrow, it was the sinking realization that the version of me she'd always known, the safe, forgiving, do-no-harm version, had evolved into something sharper, something prepared. "So, what? You're just going to ruin me," she said finally. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just not going to protect you anymore." That was the distinction. I wasn't out for blood. I was done shielding her from the consequences of her own chaos. I stood up and walked to the window. Down the hill, past the trees, you could see the edge of the lake reflecting the early frost. A place she once said felt timeless. Fitting, now that we'd run out of time. "I moved out last week," I said, still watching the water. "The apartment's small. 1 bedroom. I don't need more than that." "Wait, what? You've already—" "Yep. Gone. My name's off the mortgage. You'll find the rest of the details in the back of the folder." She flipped to the back. A legal document. Signed. Prepared. Filed. "You had me served. By courier? It's more efficient." A pause. "I thought you loved me," she said, in a whisper thin as smoke. I turned, looked her square in the eye. "I did. Enough to make breakfast even after I knew. Enough to wait and watch and listen, just to be sure I wasn't crazy. Enough to plan my own escape instead of blowing everything up in a fit of rage. That's the kind of love you walked away from." She didn't speak. She just stared at her hands like they'd betrayed her too. That's the part they don't talk about in stories like these, the stillness. The long, slow exhale of someone realizing they miscalculated the quiet one. She thought I'd scream. Thought I'd throw something. Thought I'd plead for her to stay. She thought wrong. After a while, she started asking logistical questions. "What about the car? Can we sell the couch? Will we split the deposit from the cabin?" I answered each one like we were discussing weather patterns. Calm. Final. The real damage had already been done. And now came the dismantling. The great disassembly of a shared life. The reverse engineering of a decade. A few hours later, I left the cabin. She stayed. Said she needed time to think. She sat at the dining table, still flipping through the folder like the ending might change if she read it enough times. I didn't say goodbye. On the drive home, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. And freedom, I've learned, doesn't always feel like fireworks or champagne. Sometimes, it feels like driving down a cold highway with nothing in the passenger seat but your own clarity. Back at the apartment, I unpacked a single duffel. Hung one framed photo on the wall. Me on a mountain. Alone. Smiling. The next day, the messages started. Not from her. From the people she had curated so carefully, friends, family, coworkers. Confused. Curious. "Is everything okay? Why didn't you say anything?" She's been acting strange. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I posted one thing on social media. Just a photo of the lake. Captioned simply, "I stayed quiet." She didn't. The ripple was instant. I didn't need to out her. She'd already built the fire. All I did was light the match. I thought the silence would be the best part. I imagined those first few days of freedom as some kind of rebirth, sunlight through open blinds, fresh coffee in a mug that didn't match anyone else's. Just me, a clean calendar, and the quiet hum of self-respect. But here's what no one tells you. Silence echoes. You leave the battlefield thinking it's over, only to hear your name bouncing off the walls in new, strange ways. The morning after I posted the lake photo, the one with the caption, I stayed quiet. She didn't. My phone buzzed like it owed me an apology. Not with likes. With messages. Dozens. Some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some from people I barely knew. Is that about her? Man, I had no idea. You okay? And then came the real ones. The unfiltered ones. The confessions. A message from a guy named Brett. Said he worked with her at a marketing firm 2 years ago. Said he always felt something was off, but didn't want to stir drama. He remembered her mentioning Cody in a way that didn't sound strictly professional. Another message from one of her college friends. Jenna. The kind of friend she used to complain about for being too blunt. I'm sorry, Jenna wrote. I should have said something sooner. She told us she and Cody had chemistry before you guys even hit your 7th year. I didn't think she'd actually go there. Each message was a breadcrumb. Every one of them part apology, part confirmation. I didn't reply to most. I didn't have to. Truth travels faster when you just open the door and let it breathe. By the end of the week, she texted. Just one word. Why? No punctuation. No context. Just that. The kind of text you send when your narrative has crumbled and you don't know where to start rebuilding the lie. I stared at the screen for a full minute before setting the phone down and walking out onto the balcony. It was cold. Crisp. That kind of air that makes you feel present whether you want to be or not. I watched the traffic 3 stories down and realized I didn't owe her an answer. She wasn't asking why I left. She was asking why I didn't scream when I did. Why I didn't flail. Why I didn't beg. Why I didn't give her something dramatic she could show her friends to prove I was the irrational one. But I didn't give her fireworks. I gave her silence. And that silence was now getting louder by the day. Over the next week, her life began unraveling like a poorly stitched sweater. Cody ghosted her. I found out from a mutual acquaintance, someone in her office who liked to keep receipts. Apparently, Cody hadn't signed up for the long haul. He didn't want to be that guy. He didn't expect to be seen. Especially not with screenshots and hotel timestamps floating around like confetti at a truth parade. He transferred departments. Quietly. Left her in the same cubicle where they once flirted over spreadsheets and lunch breaks. Poetic, really. And then came the charity gala. You remember the friend group? The polished, curated crew we used to spend New Year's with? She showed up at a gala we used to attend together, wearing the same dress from that photo in the folder. The one she wore when she left the hotel with him. Bad choice. Turns out, screenshots travel. She spent the evening dodging side eyes and half-hearted smiles. One of our friends, David, told me later she left early, said she wasn't feeling well. It's hard to feel well when your credibility is leaking from every crack you tried to seal. Then, finally, she called. I didn't answer. The voicemail came through 10 minutes later. I don't know what story you're telling everyone, but it's not fair. You don't get to just disappear and leave me to deal with the mess you created. That was rich. I listened twice, just to be sure I heard it right. The mess I created. Amazing how people can trip over their own decisions and still blame the floor. I texted back 3 words. Check the folder. That was it. She didn't reply, but I know she read it. I picture her sitting alone, back in that house we once called ours, realizing she miscalculated her audience. She thought I'd keep the curtain closed. She didn't expect me to open it, step out, and take a bow. Here's the thing, though. I didn't do any of this to hurt her. Not really. I did it to reclaim my own narrative. Because for too long, I let her frame the story. I let her define the tempo. I let her explain my reactions, my emotions, even my silence as passivity. But silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. And in the end, it was the one thing she never prepared for. I started going back to the gym. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to remember what it feels like to move, to breathe, to carry weight that's mine instead of someone else's. I started eating better, sleeping better, reading again. Not self-help books or revenge thrillers, just things that made me curious. Things she used to roll her eyes at. Things I used to hide so I wouldn't get mocked at dinner. She used to call me predictable. But unpredictability is just preparation no one sees. The world didn't explode after I left her. It didn't collapse or erupt in flames. It just kept going. And so did I. Only now, I was walking lighter. Because the echo of betrayal doesn't get to define me. But the silence that followed? That's mine forever. The first person to call her out publicly wasn't me. It was her sister. That part still makes me smirk. Apparently, during a Sunday brunch with the family, someone made the mistake of asking how I was doing, assuming we were working through things. And instead of lying, as expected, her sister laid the whole thing out like a table setting. Hotel rooms. The folder. Cody. The room went silent. Like power had gone out mid-conversation. Her mother gasped. Her father, who once shook my hand and told me, "You're the kind of man who makes things last," apparently left the table. When I heard about it, indirectly, of course, I didn't gloat. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt satisfied. Because this wasn't revenge in the loud, throw things and curse kind of way. This was erosion. The slow disintegration of her image. Of her insulation. She'd built her world on performance. The happy wife. The fun friend. The professional who has it all together. Turns out, it takes just one ugly truth to shatter all that glass. She texted that night. "You got my own sister to turn on me?" I typed back. Then deleted. Typed again. Deleted again. Then finally, I wrote. "Your sister just saw what I've seen. The difference is, she didn't pretend it was normal." No response. That week, she deleted her Instagram. Not a single goodbye post. Just vanished. That told me more than anything she could have said. It wasn't regret. It was retreat. And me? I was thriving in the least Instagrammable way possible. Reading real books. Going on long walks. Rewatching movies I used to love without someone saying, "Ugh, this again?" It wasn't revenge. Not yet. The funny thing about secrets is how they multiply. Once you dig up one, the others start clawing their way out. Turns out Cody wasn't the only one. No, she hadn't slept with a dozen men. Nothing that dramatic. But there had been others, emotional affairs. Lingering messages from friends. A weird pattern of late client dinners dating back over 2 years. I wasn't surprised. That's the part that stung. Because by now, I'd stopped asking why. I started asking how long. And I had receipts. Her email, still synced to the old family laptop she forgot I kept. Not out of malice. Just forgetfulness. Sloppy, in the way people get when they assume no one's watching. I found messages to a guy named Aiden. Sweet nothings. Memes. That same emoji she used to send me back when she still thought I was interesting. And then came the kicker. A cloud-stored voice memo sent to him. Sometimes I wonder if I married the first guy who was safe. Like I panicked at 28 and grabbed the one who wouldn't break me. I laughed when I heard it. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd how small she'd made me sound in her mind, even as I kept giving her space, grace, time. It was that voice memo that sealed it. I emailed it to myself. Then to my lawyer. Not to use in court, but to remind myself who I'd really been living with. The mask had cracked, and I was done talking to the mask. I invited her to lunch. One last time. Neutral ground. A quiet cafe downtown where the soup's always too salty and the servers pretend they don't recognize you from high school. She looked nervous when she walked in. That faux confidence walk she wore like cheap perfume was thinner now. Her makeup was heavy. Her eyes were puffy. And when she saw me, her face dropped, like she hoped I'd age worse. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. "It's not a meeting," I replied. "It's a handoff." I slid a sealed envelope across the table. She blinked. "What's this?" "A list of everything I know." "Not all of it. Just enough." "Enough for what?" "For Cody's fiancée. For Aiden's wife. For your job's HR department, should I ever feel inclined." She paled. "You wouldn't." "I haven't. Yet. But let's be clear, this isn't blackmail. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just informing you. If you ever spin this story into something it wasn't, or come for me legally, or lie to someone who matters about why we ended, then yes, I absolutely will burn it all down." I sipped my coffee. She didn't touch hers. "I didn't mean for it to get like this," she said, voice brittle. "You didn't mean to get caught." Silence. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally. "Nothing," I said. "That's the part you still don't get. I already won. You just haven't felt it yet." I stood. "Have a nice life." She called my name as I walked out, just once. But I didn't look back. Because some stories deserve an ending that doesn't flinch. 2 months later, I sent the package. Not because I was angry. Because I was ready to disappear, fully and completely. The envelope was unmarked. Inside, a single printed photo of her and Cody, arms wrapped around each other outside the Marriott. Timestamp visible. Alongside it, a USB drive with the voice memo. And a sticky note. 6 words. Block letters. My handwriting. "If you're reading this, ask her why." I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. I sent 3 copies. One to her father. One to Cody's fiancée. One to our former boss, the one who called her irreplaceable. I didn't stick around for the fallout. I was already gone. Not moved across town. Gone. New city. New name, professionally at least. New locks, new rhythm, new quiet. People always ask, what was your cruel revenge? And here it is. I became undeniable. Not because I shouted, but because I outgrew her in silence. Because I let her destroy the illusion, then rebuilt a version of me she can never touch again. No chaos. No courtrooms. Just clean, clinical consequence. She doesn't know where I live now. Doesn't know if I've met someone new. Doesn't know how much I've healed. And that's the revenge. Because the loudest sentence I never said. You left me first. I just finally caught up. And now? She's haunted by a man who doesn't miss her. And that's the kind of ending no apology can rewrite.